So, let's treat this in an interview style kind of thing. We're going to go through each one of these terms, and I'm going to ask the audience, and I'm going to get a volunteer to answer it for me. Right, there's a few terms here. Once you've answered a question, you're not allowed to answer a question. Ha So, we'll start off with, let's do an API. What's an API? I'll call someone random. No, it's an API.
A collection of data stored. No.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, no?
Yeah. Where you can call certain endpoints of that data to your website.
So, say that again without thinking about it halfway through. Because you're on the right track.
Okay. It's a collection of data
Okay.
that you can, no. The API itself
Yes.
is the endpoints where you can call data from a database to your website.
Yeah. It's a collection of endpoints that you can call and get and receive and put data for your website. Do you want to add anything to that?
I just know that the PI, I think, means programming interface.
It does. You know what the A stands for?
A programming interface?
Close. You're off by about, yes, it's application. So you're off by about half a dozen others.
That's one of the trickier ones because it can come in many forms, right?
APIs? APIs can come in very many forms. Like, we have a RESTful API, kind of like what we're building right now, right? It accepts and returns JSON. Right? There's also APIs for like SDKs. Like we're using the link API technically. Because the two applications that are talking are the link queries and our application. So that's also technically an API. But the common use for an API is a web API or a RESTful API like we're building. Liv, you wanna?
I'm sorry, I finally got my
What is that?
Foco.
Poco? Cool.
I kept thinking Pico in my head, and I was like, that's not right.
All right. So that being said, now we know what an API is, right?
Well, is it safe to say that an API is a data structure that allows AJAX calls?
A web server, a server that allows AJAX calls,
Okay.
not a data structure. So now we know what APIs are. Check. What's a web API? What is web API, Amanda?
Is that where you are making application programming interfaces across, like into the cloud, across towards somebody else's server and not just your own? Is that what makes it a web API and not regular?
Yes, but that's not the web API that we're talking about here. Okay. This is where it gets fun. So this is where we're going into the alphabet soup of .NET and the .NET world.
Okay.
We're building what's called web APIs.
Okay.
Web APIs is a technology we use in C# to build APIs. So it's the framework, it's a set of libraries, it's the ideas around building an API inside of C#. Okay. It's like Ruby on Rails. It's like, I know you're using a framework you don't know, just grab a framework that you don't know. I'm aware of that. But it's a framework that we use in C# to build APIs.
Okay.
So it's web API.
It's a framework to build.
APIs in C#. Yep. I don't think we ever actually formally talked about that, so that's we can.
I thought they were synonymous.
What?
I thought they were synonymous until now.
Yeah. They pretty much are in the .NET world. Well, like this is like a tissue. This is a Kleenex. So this is the generic word for all APIs, but this is a specific brand of APIs.
I'm so confused about API. Like, because how do you sum it up to cover all the bases? Because it can do so many things.
It is. So my answer for this question is it is a common interface that two applications can use to talk to each other.
That's for API or web API?
For APIs.
Okay.
be that a set of methods that are exposed or that set of endpoints that's exposed, but it's a common interface that I can have a program talk against.
Multiple programs.
Yes. With an emphasis that they're probably talking about web APIs and the internet and a web server and stuff like that.
Which leads into our next one, sir.
Server. Hey. So what's a server? We'll go to Dante on this one.
It's a computer that runs a bunch of instances of like programs that are all designed to like traffic and control information to other computers. So it's like you can host like websites on there or APIs on there or anything. It's usually like something that you want a lot of people to connect to get stuff out of it.
Yeah, a server is a computer that the client's not using. It can be used for managing network connections, for multiple connecting to. It's usually in the cloud or in a closet down the hallway or something like that. It's a computer that the users are not directly accessing. Good answer. Waiting for people to take notes. Cool.
And a server is where data is stored, right?
Typically, yeah. Yeah, they typically house our database and our web API.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
Servers can range from a file server where you're just storing files on there, which is super simple, not a lot of complexity, to a large system that has multiple databases on it, that has multiple servers that are clustered together. So it just ranges, but the core piece is that it's a computer system that services a network or system without users logging on directly to it.
I like that.
Cool. So let's talk about, let's move to .NET Core. What is .NET Core? Heather.
Might be wrong. The system that C# runs on.
If you replace the word with framework, you'd be correct.
Framework.
Yeah.
C# runs on.
It's the framework that C# runs on. It's what runs our code. It's the thing we're building. It's the environment that we're giving. It's kind of the blanket term for everything we're doing with C# right now, is .NET Core. It is Microsoft's open source cross-platform framework for .NET.
Didn't it used to be called the framework?
Yeah.
It used to be called .NET Framework.
But that actually, that still exists versus .NET framework.
Will you say what you said after open source again?
Maybe. Might play back.
You said the open source something framework.
Cross-platform.
Thank you.
I'm also recording this.
I know you are.
Listen to it again.
So does Microsoft have other cross-platform open source frameworks that are not .NET Core?
No, but they have .NET framework.
Okay.
.NET framework is the OG, the original .NET workhorse. But it's really tightly coupled. It only runs on a Windows environment. For a lot of reasons, which I can go into. I'm not going to bore you with those reasons. But it's really tightly coupled and only runs on Windows. Which is awesome, but Windows isn't the best solution in the world. It's not the only solution in the world, and developers don't like Windows. For whatever reason. I don't get it. But .NET Framework, you see a lot of legacy apps in that. The good news is that most of the ideas and principles in these two cover in both. So even though we are learning .NET Core, you'll be able to work in .NET Framework easily enough. The configuration is a little bit different, the environment's a little bit different, but it's pretty much the exact same.
Yeah.
There's still controllers, there's still an ORM, there's still Entity Framework, there's still, all those things are still the same. It's just they're running different libraries under the hood How we feel about that? As of right now, June 25th, 2019, Microsoft has no plans to deprecate .NET Framework.
That change.
But the community is pretty much like, they're going to deprecate .NET Framework at some point.
Mhm.
There's no point in having two things that do the exact same thing. One that's more flexible, powerful, and open and faster, and one that's legacy slow and has a bad reputation. It's going to die at some point. It's just, I give it a year before they make that announcement.
And that's normally their MO.
Yeah.
They put something out, see how it works, see how the adoption is, and then when the adoption is big enough, they start to sunset it. No.
And you can even start to see it because some of the new features that are coming out in C# 8 are not going to be in .NET Framework. They're only going to be in .NET Core. So you're starting to see stuff like that happen. So it's coming. That's why we're learning .NET Core. Feeling good?
I'm glad you said that because I would have had no idea, but I would have been like, .NET.
Yeah. It's for recruiters and stuff like that. It's all .NET. But once you get in an interview, you're going to have to be able to talk about like core versus framework. And as long as you have that high level knowledge, like framework's legacy, core is new, cross-platform, and open source.
Good enough.
Check.
That's good enough.
Yeah. So with that being said, now that we know the .NET Core big blanket term, let's drill down to some of these other .NET terms. ASP.NET.
Go there first.
ASP.NET. Here you go.
Hey.
What's your
I
best
have
guess?
no idea. I don't even
If this
know.
was an interview, what would you
It's
say?
I'd say it's something inside of .NET Core.
That does.
I have no idea what the ASP stands for, honestly.
Okay.
I honestly don't know.
And that's fine. It's good.
It's an open source server-side application framework designed for web development to produce dynamic web pages.
Thank
What
you.
does that mean?
What does that mean, Nate?
That's just words.
That's a great definition. Break it down into your words for me. And for the record, I would say that in an interview if someone gave me that answer. That's a great textbook definition. What is it?
Sound great.
It allows you to build dynamic websites.
It does. Yeah, it's the web framework inside of .NET. Hold up. Web API.
Mhm.
They both exist. Web API is a part of ASP.NET. ASP.NET also has something else that we're not going to touch called server-side rendering. Server-side rendering is where we have our logic on our page and we spit out, instead of returning JSON from our servers, we return HTML that's dynamically created.
Say that again. ASP returns.
It can return either JSON via Web API,
Uh-huh.
or it can return dynamically generated HTML using something called Razor. We haven't talked about Razor and we won't, because I think it should be dying, hopefully. It's not as awesome as anything else. But yeah, ASP.NET is pretty much the overarching web framework for building full stack web apps inside of C#.
And the ASP stands for Active Server Pages.
Yes,
Does Vue use dynamic HTML like Razor?
it can, yeah. The V in the view here, that could be dynamic HTML. Or are you talking about Vue.js?
Yeah, Vue.js.
The Vue.js is like React. It's all client side.
And ASP.NET did start out server side, right? And
Totally.
And it slowly is moved. It's been moving to client side for
Yes.
a while now.
Yeah, as it should be.
As it should have been.
So ASP.NET uses web APIs?
Yep. Web API is a part of ASP.NET.
And do we use ASP.NET?
We use it.
It's under the hood though?
Yep. We use it to run our website and everything like that, but our endpoints are Web API endpoints. Because this itself could be its own cohort.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Used to be a whole test on it.
Yeah.
I don't know, do they still do a full test on it now?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like Razor is still going to what Razor? I'm saying but not explaining it.
You
So-
okay?
Me? I
Yeah.
am fine. I'm not hyped up on day one or anything like that. Yeah, right? So, Razor, We know what JSX is, right? JSX is JavaScript plus HTML. Razor is HTML plus C#.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So you can actually put C# inside your HTML to dynamically generate stuff.
I like the name, Razor.
Yeah, right? What that allows you to do is, on the server, run that C# to create HTML dynamically on the fly. That's why it's called server-side rendering, because you're rendering out stuff server-side. Versus client-side rendering, like we do in React, where everything's rendered out and done client-side. So that's the core difference.
That's why it sounds so good.
It depends on where you want your rendering to happen, where you want the work to actually happen.
So for like searching, maybe, like you were saying that they sometimes for searching they'll render it out on the server so that Google can read it or something.
That's exactly what it is. For like SEO purposes, like we're going to render it out server side. So whenever we make that request for our web page, we don't just get a JavaScript file and an empty div tag. We actually get the actual stuff that's on our page. So server side rendering isn't going away, but it's slowly being replaced by client side rendering.
Can I say something on that real quick? Companies are starting to realize that server-side rendering is probably not the most efficient on a lot of the apps. There are a lot of the functionality that's on server-side, doing on the server-side rendering on server-side apps now. They're moving those to client-side because it makes more sense, horsepower-wise. Because then you can have it where the server just needs to do a few functions and gather data. But then any serving of the information, any serving of images should be on the client side because that's just more memory intensive. So a lot of stuff you guys are doing now. Well, we are doing now is really the future. It really is.
Yeah, this is where app development is going.
Yeah.
Going is a really cool word, but it also means we're not there yet.
Right.
But it means we're making progress in that general direction. So that's ASP.NET. ASP.NET is the full web framework of .NET.
So .NET Core is a part of ASP.NET.
Other ASP.NET is a part of .NET Core.
It's a framework of .NET Core?
Yes. We feeling good here? Alright.
Slow check mark.
Slow check mark to make sure that looks still really good. While we're on the .NET train, let's talk about EF Core. Amanda, what is EF Core?
It's Entity Framework Core, and I thought before you used the word library about something else with regards to this earlier, that it was a library that was on top of .NET Core that we could use to help parse through our data.
It is still a library.
Okay, so the library part I was right on.
Yes. That helps us parse out our data in .NET Core. Can you elaborate on that for me a little bit?
No.
That's fair.
I know this was a thing that we installed, I think,
Yes.
before we did Safari.
Yes.
So I don't know how that helps us.
Okay. Anyone else want to take a whack at that content?
It talks to the Postgres database and gives us a bunch of commands and like assumptions that plug in C# into the database world so that it makes it really easy.
Yeah. It allows us to talk to our database.
Okay.
It serves as that middleman, the middle person between our C# and our Postgres database, or any database, in fact. But it takes our C# code, our Lambda statements, our link code, stuff like that, translates them into SQL statements, runs those SQL statements, and then interprets the results as POCOs. Ha-ha! Right?
I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
POCO. So that's EF Core. It's that layer between C# and a database. It makes working with databases a lot easier. So
Which puts you together.
Dante and Phil.
So I was asking my dad how if he like used what he used to talk to his database, and he was talking about like he writes SQL statements and then he embeds them
Yeah.
in something else. What's that all about? That's like not using the library, right? That's old
Yeah.
school, right?
So that talks about an ORM. We're going into the concept of an ORM. So an ORM stands for, ORM stands for, Yes, thank you, Pete. What that means is that SQL has results, right? But it's not in any sort of structure that we know about. So we need to have some way to work with that SQL database that is also able to work inside of our language. So that's where this ORM comes into play. The ORM translates our SQL queries and SQL results into something we can work with inside of C#. That's not the only solution to working with a database inside of a different language. Because databases just run queries, right? Like I'm going to select star from movies where actor equals Johnny Depp, kind of thing. I can do stuff like that. The way that a lot of people do, or that has been done, is they're going to actually embed that SQL query as a string inside of their application, and then run that string against their database. That is not using it in ORM, because they're going to be doing all the parsing and SQLing themselves. Is that a great way to do it? Probably not the best. It's very error prone. EF Core handles a lot of security concerns with you, so that you don't have to worry about as well. There's a lot of downfalls to that. The upside to that is that it's slightly faster. It's more scalable. The queries run faster, and you're only doing what you want to do exactly. ORMs add a layer of abstraction over things, right? So we have to create the query and hope that we created a good query that runs in a reasonable amount of time that isn't really crazy. So we know that there's two things in Link called any and all, right? If we switch back on an old project, the toggling of those two things changed my SQL statement from a 5-line SQL query to 100-line SQL query, right? Whew. It gave me the exact same results, but the one that was 100 line took a lot longer to run. I didn't know that until I put it on my app, which is a dangerous thing. So this adds a whole bunch of complexities, but it also saves a lot of time. If we do it like your father does it, the SQLs are much more raw, the data is much more raw, but it might be a little bit faster for us. It might be a bit more scalable. So EF Core is one of the more full-featured ORMs out there. That means that it's going to be as closer to C# than it is to C. There are other ORMs out there that are closer to SQL than the actual language. Those have better performances, but maybe aren't as full-featured. The joins don't work as quite as well. They aren't so automagical for us. They're just kind of there.
Wait, did you say EF Core was the ORM?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought NBC was the ORM.
Nope.
So, what are the use cases for, like, would you want to write out your queries if you had like a ton of data and like speed was like a super issue?
I would always write my app first with EF Core, and then only when it becomes an issue, look to move something to a different ORM. Because EF Core is good enough for most sites. This is talking like Stack Overflow scale sites, where you're hitting by like up to 200 users a day. Then you might want to switch to a different one. So we talked about ORMs in there, right? Talked about EF Core. The other word that we mentioned, POCOs. What does POCO stand for?
It's a C# object.
And what is a plain old C# object?
Is it a Java bean? Is that the same thing?
It's inspired by Java. There's something called Pojo, plain old JavaScript object.
Isn't an object without methods?
Yeah,
It's a data model, right?
yeah, it's an object that has very minimal methods, very minimal properties. It's only properties. Typically used for a database model. It's like here's my database structure. Yep.
Or user objects.
Because as we'll see, there are classes that have a whole bunch of functions and methods. Like our controllers really aren't POCOs, right? They're doing a lot of stuff for us.
Yeah.
But our, what did we do yesterday? Our inventory apps, our location is a POCO. There's not a lot of functionality, it's just structured properties, it's a really simple class. So that's a POCO.
Even if there's a foreign key?
Yeah, that's still a simple class, because the foreign key is just a property.
So it's objects without methods or
Yeah,
functionality.
it's a very simple object, yeah.
You said it's used for a database
Model.
model?
Database table, yeah.
Okay.
Models and tables are interchangeable, pretty much.
I thought that's what you were saying, I just wanna make sure I had that right.
Just .NET Core, does that work with like MongoDB?
It does.
And all sorts of different kinds of databases? Okay.
Yep.
So,
.NET Core can work with any database that it has a driver for, which is pretty much all modern databases.
okay. And anything that's not SQL is called a NoSQL database?
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Now, does .NET Core work with other languages other than C#?
It does. VB and F# are the other two big ones.
Okay.
VB is Visual Basic. It comes to us from the Excel world. If you ever written an Excel macro or anything like that, you'll see it looks very familiar. User friendly for the average person. I don't know about that. And F# is the functional language in the .NET world.
Never seen that used anywhere.
It's so much fun. I've done crash courses on it. I've tried to use it for projects, but it's just not quite there yet.
What's the practical application of that? What's the use case?
And so C# is very object-oriented based. F# is functional programming based.
So that'd be like a level just above scripting.
Yeah, it's looking at your problems in a different way.
Oh, okay.
So like instead of like your controllers being objects, your controllers are now functions.
Right.
Yeah, and then it embraces a whole bunch of functional programming principles.
Okay.
And so is F# the new thing or the old thing?
It's a parallel thing.
Okay.
It's been around for a long time.
It's been around for mid 2010s ish. The teens. It's so weird to say. It was set for the 20s, the roaring 2020s.
Yeah. Or 20s.
Yeah, right? It's coming
You-
back.
I mean, if there aren't flapper parties and whatnot.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's the
or
decade
New
of jazz.
Year's,
It's the decade of jazz.
It's gonna happen.
Straight up. Anyways.
I have a question that's not necessarily related to this, but, and you can say pin on it later totally, but
Yeah.
I don't want to task. So later, what's the practical use of learning like Golang and stuff like that?
So like learning different languages.
Yeah, so I was doing some research and found like a course for Golang, and is that something you can learn easier on the side? Like, what's the practical use for it?
Yeah, so there's actually really big practical use for it. And yes, I'll answer that. I think right now. Was I in the middle of saying something? About F#, different languages, F# and VB. Yes, other languages, right? We'll come back to the functional programming part at some point. But other languages, yes, 100% is very applicable. Because what happens is that you learn new ideas. And if you learn new ideas in a different language, you can actually apply those ideas to other languages that you already know. So for example, C# is not very asynchronous by nature, right? It's very like, do this, then do this, then do this. JavaScript is very asynchronous, right? Do this, then at some point do this, at some point do that, and do this thing at the same time, right? It's very like, oh, things are happening concurrently, I have to know this event loop kind of thing in order to work at a high level. So there's a lot of parallelism over there, right?
Mhm.
We can take those ideas and use those ideas in our C# code to write better parallel performance tasks inside of C#. On the flip side, C# types are a thing, right?
Mhm.
Like types are a thing that's in our face in C#, not so much in JavaScript. But now that it's a thing in C#, you're more aware of them in JavaScript, aren't you?
Mhm.
Like, oh, this thing actually has a type now, I care what its type is. So that type safety now will overflow over to your dynamic languages and make you code a bit better. Like you'll go, oh, I'm assigning a string to an integer, that feels dirty. It probably is. Why should we do it? But it's learning a new idea and applying it to something else. So you're growing your vocabulary and expanding your knowledge of something else. Golang solves other problems that maybe C# and JavaScript don't solve as well, or don't solve at all. And now you're exposing yourself to new problems and new solutions to these problems you can maybe apply to other places. So yeah, it's very practical. Does that help?
Yeah.
And I recommend Golang.
I mean, not now, but
Honestly.
in the future.
Yeah.
In the future.
Yeah.
You mentioned Visual Basic.
I did.
That's a Microsoft C# language?
That's a Microsoft .NET language.
Microsoft .NET.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully it's going away.
Yeah. I think
People
so.
are hoping that's been going away for 10 years.
I've been
Like,
hoping that's going away since I started software.
yeah,
So, no.
just like COBOL's not going away. It should, but it's not.
Or you can learn and make $1 billion a year.
So how come when we install like Gitignore, we have to we search for like Visual Basics Gitignore?
Visual Studio's getting more.
Okay.
Because Visual Studio is really tightly coupled to the .NET world.
Okay, so what's the difference between Visual Studio and Visual Basic?
Visual Basic's a language. Visual Studio is an IDE.
Visual Studio is a lot closer to Visual Code.
It's like a heavier weight, more full-featured VS Code.
Okay.
Yeah, Liv likes Visual Studio. She loves it. She loves installing it multiple times a day. Right, Liv? You see it on her face, the joy.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what Visual Studio does when you install.
Studio version of VS.
I hate it.
Yeah. And that's why VS Code's a thing. VS Studio is very heavy weighted. It's everything extremely powerful. If I just want to sling some code, I don't want to have to go through that whole process.
So you have to have like 7 versions on your.
Yeah. Right. All right. ORMs versus ERDs. ERD. What's an ERD?
Entity Relational Database.
Which
Design.
Diagram.
Diagram.
So what is it? I heard up here. Joe, as you're eating
It's
something.
like a picture. It's like of your data structure. So like data table.
It's how your tables relate to each other in a relational database.
Yeah.
So it's a visual
Kinda like a circuit board.
representation, correct?
Yeah, it's a
It's like a
visual.
wireframe, right?
Yeah, it's a wireframe for your database, a visual representation of how your database looks and the structure with it. For your homework, you were tasked to making an ERD for your capstone, right? So you had to look at your wireframes and go, how am I storing this data? Where is this data going to live? What nouns do I have in my system? What relationships do I have? Does one user have many things? Does one thing have many users? It's all just getting that and formalizing out. It's like a wireframe for your database.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, sure.
The ERDs, while we're using them here to design our applications, in the real world, how I've seen them used is not only for designing applications, but also they evolve once your application goes to production. They are used for troubleshooting applications as well.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
My dad uses DataBeaver. I think it has a feature on there where it shows an ERD of like his database or whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot of tools that actually make ERDs based on your database, which is actually pretty cool.
I mean, it looks crazy, but it looks cool.
Whenever you get like really big databases that have like a couple hundred tables with relationships, it's really awesome to see. It's confusing and overwhelming, but it's really cool to see. Because you know a person made every single one of them. Yeah. It's crazy. How are we feeling so far? We have 3 more terms. I know. It's 10:50. Checking your watch.
Oh no,
I see you.
It just vibrated, just telling me to stay back.
Right? The Git moving.
Yeah, right.
MVC. What is an MVC?
It's the model view controller, so it's the, I know it's the database logic versus the view logic. I can't remember the words that are between there, but
You're on the right track, and yeah, the idea is correct. It's the database logic versus the view logic. The MVC is a way to structure, it's a paradigm to structure our apps so that the model logic and the view logic are separate. How the data is stored is different and abstract and indifferent of how the view is done. Model.
can you explain the view logic part of that?
So the view logic is what the people see, is what the actual end user sees. So in our apps, in our C# apps, that's JSON, that's our view. But really, our view in the whole grand scheme of things is React, right? We can have the same database, the same models and controllers, and have 11 different views on top of it. Take Minesweeper, for example, right? You don't care how Minesweeper is stored, right? You just care that you get back a JSON structure, and that's it. That's the power of an MVC app. Is that we have a view that can be changed out, and we have a database that can be changed out as well. We don't care how the Minesweeper games are stored. We just care that they're stored somewhere, right? I mean, we'll look at one list. We built a view based on one API. Then we built a different API and switched it, and it still worked. It's that idea of separation that makes this so powerful.
Is that why Minesweeper was down and then you were able to go back in and tweak things that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
So the actual error of why it went down, Heroku on the free instance only gives us so big of a database. Our database can only be so big before it's like, wait a minute, stop. You've run out of physical room on your hard drive. So we decided we went and delete all the past games.
So does that mean the individuals in the past who did this project no longer have access to it?
They still have access to it, but their games are gone. So if anyone was in the middle of playing Minesweeper whenever we did that.
Oh man.
That was like all the same.
But it would still work for anyone who's built it in the past?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're talking about MVC decoupling two things, but it really does three different
Yeah, it really does
things.
decouple three things.
And that's what the MVC is all standing for, right?
Yeah, model view controller.
So,
Models are your data.
mhm.
Yeah, typically a database, yes. Your views are what the user sees, typically React, HTML, or JSON, whatever's consuming your app. And the controller is the middleman. The
That's what we
view,
wrote, right?
what?
The
Yes.
controllers are what we
Yep.
wrote.
That's pretty much what we're writing right now, right? We're
Which
writing
is
a middle. Web API,
Okay.
which we use the ORM to talk to our box.
Okay.
It's a lot of layers, but those layers make it so that each one we can interchange without much of it. And kind of separate it out.
So the web API is the controller, in our instance.
Yep. Because the views don't talk directly to the models, and the models don't talk directly to the views. It always goes through the controller.
I think you should add one more thing on there, Agile.
We can.
Or when you talk about DevOps.
Yeah. So that's MVC. Feeling cozy with that? Cozier with that? So now we have three more terms: DevOps, SRE, and Agile. Let's talk about these two things first: DevOps and SRE. We've talked about DevOps before. What is DevOps? Does anyone have a good answer for that?
I do, but.
I know.
I can take a stab at it. Vernacular. DevOps is the process in which a company uses to deploy and update their current product.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty much how do we get the code from your laptop to the end user? And how can we automate that the most? And how can we make sure that that doesn't break?
And
So we talked about Docker yesterday. Docker is a big part of DevOps.
So people in DevOps, are they usually come from a system administrator background?
So they're like a system administrator and a developer have
Okay.
They're
So-
either developers who went that way, like Catherine's husband Shimon. He was a developer, but he's like, you know what, I like DevOps better. I'm still writing code, I'm still writing script, I'm still managing things, but I'm good at doing this whole DevOps thing. I have another friend who he was a developer, but he's like, you know what, I'm much better at this DevOps things, and it's much more interesting. So he kind of grew into that role. There's also the system admin or the IT person that goes, oh, I need to manage my servers. I need to learn this thing about coding so I can write scripts to help make our process better, help make my life easier. So it's this kind of new role that cropped up between IT and developers. It's typically people from either direction are kind of filling that gap as they go. You have anything to add to that?
yeah, a lot of the stuff that is in DevOps have been people doing it for years. It's just that they put a term around it and they're trying to get it to make it a thing. It includes everything that would make just putting out code faster. You know, personnel. It encompasses everything. It's not just technology. It is a lot of companies are going that route because it is, in the big scheme of things, it can be more, it can make your systems more stable and faster and all that good stuff.
Yep.
But a lot of companies are trying to do it now because it's the new hot and sexy,
Mhm.
but not everybody's there yet.
And you mentioned a cool term that leads into the SRE one next. Reliable. SRE is Site Reliability Engineer.
Yes.
That's an engineer who's dedicated to make sure your site doesn't go down.
And it's brand new.
It's a really brand new thing. I think there's 100 SREs just at Uber. 100 people just dedicated to make sure Uber, the app, doesn't crash.
I think Google's got like 1,500.
I
That's
think they're the ones that,
I'm
are they the ones that started it? I think
Yeah,
Google was the
they
ones
are.
that started.
Like,
Mhm.
I think
It's-
2003.
It's a great thing.
Yeah, but it's like a combination of QA and DevOps and developer. Because you're like, hey, this site goes down under these conditions. I'm going to stress test my site. What happens if I have 1,000 people connect to my site simultaneously? How can I simulate that? How can I help prevent that? How can I help build the code in a way that doesn't crash?
So you're writing like a lot of custom scripts.
Probably using a lot of tools out there. There's some really cool ones like Siege that allows you to like bombard a site.
Yeah, Siege, you have
Siege is so much fun.
Azure DevOps, you
Yeah.
have
Does Daemon tools come into that?
Maybe.
you have Jenkins.
Yeah, but it's like, how can we make sure that our site doesn't go down? Because if we have downtime, that means we're not making money. All right? If Uber goes down, think of all the chaos. Right? All the drunken people trying to find their way home, getting in random cars. It'd be crazy. So yeah, that's what an SRE does. It's cool. It's a relatively newer thing. I don't know if I'd like it, because I don't like that testing and breaking. I like the building, but that's just me. If you like breaking things and fixing them, it'd be a good role for you.
Also, if you like policy and stability, it's also
Yeah.
a good role for you too.
Stupid fact. Uber driver this weekend said that he, out of the 2,000 rides that he's provided, he's only had 3 people almost throw up in his vehicle. He was like, I thought it was gonna be much higher.
Yeah.
He was like astounded that it wasn't.
3 people almost throw up.
Yeah,
3 out of
that's it.
2,000?
3 out of 2,000 rides.
You give 2,000 rides?
He's given 2,000 rides in the time that he's been driving.
Wow. That's impressive.
Isn't everybody in a state of almost throwing up?
So what's agile work?
Where do you get that shit?
I don't really like that quote. This is not wrong. It's like this phrase like everyone's like almost a dolphin.
How do you measure
So, agile. Capital A agile and lowercase a agile make a big difference. I know, right? Whew. This could be its own talk. We're going to try to keep it brief because we're inching towards our first break. We still have a system to build. Yeah, right? Whew. Good thing we're doing this for the next 3 days. Agile. So the whole principle of agile comes up to us saying, how do we build software that works for us, that's correct and valid in a timely manner? How we used to build applications is something called waterfall. Yeah, some of you are shaking your heads and giving me really bad faces because it sucks. Waterfall is the
Depends on who
process.
you are.
What?
Depends on who you are.
Oh, no, it just sucks all around. Waterfall would be like if we wanted to build Facebook in its current form, we would design everything, use case out everything, so groups, events, people, pages, business, ads, walls, friends, messages, everything. We would design that out entirely, fully fledged out that design. Use cases, wireframes, mock-ups, everything. Then build it all. Then test it. Then actually validate it. And then deploy it.
Let me add one thing in there. In the test, if a test failed, you start all the way from, if the test
Yeah.
fails and it requires that you need to add something, you start all the way at the beginning and start all over again.
Yeah. So what typically
With approval.
happened with these methods is that process would take years to do. And by the time the software would actually be developed, it wouldn't solve the original problem.
Right.
Like how long would it take to build Facebook in its current form? A long time. You know, and that's too slow. That's too slow for a good modern business.
I would go as far as say it would be impossible to do it.
100%. But Agile says, hey, you know what? Let's, instead of trying to build everything that solves all our problems at the same time, let's build the smallest thing first, and then make incremental changes based on what's happening. So at the core of Agile, both capital A and lowercase a, should be an MVP. So what was the MVP for Facebook? Hey, I want to connect to someone at a different school that I saw at the club on Friday.
Yep.
That was the MVP. You know, they started with one guy trying to meet friends. And that's it. There's like, oh, I want to add this feature, I want to add this feature, I want to iterate on this to solve this problem of social networking. Instead of going, I got a problem with social networking that involves chat events, groups, people, places, businesses, and ads. Right? Even saying that it's such a big mouthful.
I'm impressed by the speed with which you said
Yes.
that.
So Agile, it's a model that a
Yeah.
company uses.
It's a software methodology to build software.
It's just principles, yeah.
Yeah.
And is that so? This is something new. Or-
It was the original Agile manifesto came out in
1990.
like late 90s.
Yeah, like 96,
Around
97.
the turn of the century. Give or take plus or minus 5 years. And what happened was that kind of two things spun out of that manifesto. The first one is capital A Agile. That's for the people who love waterfall. They're like, we still need a process in order to do this, which I totally get. I want my bank software to have very strict processes of how things are built. I don't want cowboy developers adding in whatever code they want because they think a feature would be cooler if it was blue instead of green. That's a thing. So we need those processes. We have capital A Agile. That's where like Scrum Masters and Kanban boards and Jira come into play because we're trying to formalize this dynamic way to develop software. Lowercase a Agile is the actual principles of being agile. The ability to adapt, to iterate, to really be able to say, hey, oh, we're solving a problem. It's not the right problem. We should be solving this problem instead. How fast can we pivot to that new problem? That's true agile.
Yeah.
So it's how can we write a process that formalizes that enough to actually use it and the company actually make it viable. So companies should be agile. They should not be waterfall. They should be agile. But they need to not fall into that pit of capital A Agile that could very easily turn into a waterfall.
See that a lot.
Yeah. Of course, like most things in life, for me at least, my ideal solution is kind of a hybrid of the two. Is that we have some people do some high-level design of some of the core features, and then we build those out.
Yeah, a combination of the two. The waterfall is good for like systems that aren't very complex, like building a server. So you have waterfall where they build the server or build out your components inside of the cloud. And then all of the very complex pieces for development and high-end configuration should be agile.
Yeah. And like the UI for how something looks should be very agile, right? Because it'd be like, how can we switch this out the fastest?
But it's also the feedback. I think that's what I like about Agile, is that you get it. It's designed for you to get feedback on your design.
Yeah.
That's the big flaw of waterfall. You don't get any feedback until too late.
Yeah.
Whereas Agile is designed for you to get that constant feedback on
So
is your design right? Is it set up properly?
Yeah,
And that's
so
a big deal.
in waterfall, you get a feedback every year, 6 months, 2 years.
If that.
Agile, it's designed for you to get feedback weekly, every 2 weeks, at the slowest every month. So you can iterate and pivot and really work on the correct problem faster.
And it's from the developer's perspective versus process perspective.
Yep.
Because waterfall is process oriented. It's like, okay, you have these gates to get through. You get through this gate, you're good. When we know in reality that's not entirely true.
Yeah.
Whereas Agile is you're actually looking at the code, and if the code fails, you fail. That means your code's got to be production, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be working. That's the big difference.
Yep.
It's one of the many big differences, I should say.
Feeling better?
Yes.
Clearing up some of the alphabet soup for the interviews on Friday?
Yeah.
Great. Love it. I love going to a performance. I really do. Anyways, you got it? Did we get everything? Cool. 15-minute break, digest a lot of that, come back at 11:20, and we'll start building out a website to help us manage our fake gym, Suncoast something. I did come up with a better name. But it's gonna be help to manage our gym.
Like a Suncoast Development Gym, and it's just SVG Ducklings instead.
Oh, I like it.